Om Jnanatimirandasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So these are the instructions of Lord Kapila of application of devotional service in our day-to-day life, practical life. When Mother Devhuti had placed the question that is it really possible that Purusha, the soul who has come to enjoy in this material world, who is very much attracted to Prakriti, this material nature, is it possible to separate them? Is it possible that the living entity can become liberated from the influence of three modes of material nature? So, Lord Kapila is explaining that, yes, very much possible, and possible even while living in the material world, even while doing material activities seemingly. It is possible that one is actually liberated and is not influenced by the three modes of material nature. So, that is being explained here very nicely. Evam vidita tattvasya. For one who knows the absolute truth, vidita tattvasya means one who knows the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada will explain what does it mean to know the Supreme Lord. It means to understand the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Enjoyer. The Supreme Lord, He is the Supreme Enjoyer, and the living entity is meant for his enjoyment and for his service. This is called vidita tattvasya, knowing the absolute. Then, if one knows the Supreme Lord like this, that He is the Supreme Enjoyer, and in connection to that, I am His servant, I am meant for His enjoyment, I am meant for His service. When this is known, Prakriti Mai, my material nature, my energy, this material nature, Prakriti Mai Manasam Yunjataha, and whose mind is always fixed on me, on my activities. Manasaha Yunjata. For such a person, na apakurute, this Prakriti cannot do any harm. So, two things are explained. One who knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the Supreme Enjoyer, and he fixes his mind on the Supreme Lord, engages all his senses, his activities in satisfying the Supreme Lord, and his mind is also completely absorbed in the Supreme Lord. For him, na apakurute, this Maya or this Prakriti cannot do any harm. And such a person, he is called Atma Aramasya Karhichit. He is called Atma Rama, one who rejoices in the self. And Karhichit means at any time. So at any time, it is not possible for a soul who is completely knowing me as the Absolute, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his mind is completely absorbed in me. At any time, it is not possible that Maya can actually influence him. So Prabhupada translates this. The influence of material nature, Mayi Prakritim, cannot harm an enlightened soul. Na apakurute. An enlightened soul is vidita tattvasya. One who is enlightened, one who knows the supreme truth. For him, there is no influence of material nature. It cannot harm him. Because he knows the truth of the Absolute, and his mind is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is the secret. If our mind is absorbed in the Supreme Lord, and if we know Vidita Tattvasya, if we know in truth the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and knowing the truth does not mean simply theoretical understanding. It is very important to understand. It is just like Prabhupada gives the example. If you know that the Supreme Lord is the root of all existence, then it demands an action. You will water the root. So simply knowing the Supreme Lord is the enjoyer, I am his servant, it is just theoretical understanding. When one engages thus, knowing this truth, then it is possible that actually the influence of three modes will not act on him. So, that is what is being explained here. Prabhupada is very nicely explaining about this Atma Aramasya. What is the meaning of Atma Rama and what is the meaning of Vidita Tattva? So Prabhupada says, devotee whose mind is always fixed upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he is actually Atmaram. So, in our day-to-day life, the most important activity, most important, if you see, even the direction given by Srila Rupa Goswami is always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. That is the most important. That is called as the most important principle of devotional service. All other activities are subservient to this principle. So, if our mind can be absorbed in Krishna somehow or other, then actually we become Atmaram. And if we become Atmaram, material modes will not act on us. It cannot do any harm. And here it is explained very nicely. What does it mean that our mind is absorbed in Krishna? So Prabhupada explains that if Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, if one knows Vidita Tattva, then all resources, all our senses, everything should be utilized for him. So, Prabhupada is giving the example, very nice example, because sometimes the devotee may also wonder that actually I came to Krishna consciousness to think of Krishna, but you are making me to think of money, life membership, selling, isn't it? Enrolling people, all these things. So, it is very essential to understand how Prabhupada is very nicely explaining this. It's very simple to understand. If Krishna is the proprietor, he is the enjoyer. It is meant for his enjoyment. If you are the proprietor of something, then all those belongings are meant for your use, for your enjoyment. So if Krishna is the proprietor, he is also the supreme enjoyer of everything, all resources. And very clearly Krishna explains this in Bhagavad Gita. Nothing in this material world is there which exists which is not related to the Supreme Lord. Even in Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, one of the very important shloka Krishna says is, if someone sees existence independent of me, it is illusion. That something is existing without me, something is existing without relationship with me, then that is illusion. So this is called Vidita Tattva, knowing the truth. So very simple, devotees, if they know this very well, that even my mind, my intelligence, even my body, my senses, they all belong to Krishna. So should I be like a materialist, thinking it belongs to me, and I try to satisfy my senses for my enjoyment? Isn't it? Suppose one may think, okay, money which is coming to the temple, that is Krishna's, isn't it? But then practically we think, these senses, this mind, this is mine, isn't it? So here we can see something grossly we can perceive. This is Krishna's temple, Krishna's money, I should not touch, I should not spoil it. But this is my mind, my senses, that I can do anything. Isn't it? There we don't apply this principle. This body also belongs to Krishna. Mind also belongs to Krishna. Intelligence also belongs to Krishna. So if it belongs to Krishna, it is given to you for some time, it should be utilized for his purpose. Simple formula. If you understand this, then we are liberated. And if we don't understand this and simply utilize everything for our sense enjoyment, then we are conditioned. It will bind us. So devotee thinks, intelligence is given to me. If it is given to me and it belongs to Krishna, let me utilize it for Krishna. This body is given to me. I will keep it as a property of the Lord. I will maintain it nicely so that I can use it properly in the service of Krishna, because after all, it belongs to Him. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in practical life demonstrated this. Sanatan Goswami, when he was having, a kind of things coming out, oozing from his body, from the different sores he had on his body. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced him. So he felt that actually this body, which is so much dirty, filled with disease, it has been embraced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is not right. Better I should give up this body. And he practically thought like that to commit suicide in front of Jagannath chariot. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu scolded him and he said, "You are a fool. This body is Krishna's body. You have no right to utilize it according to your ideas. It is His property and it must be utilized for His service." So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu practically demonstrated what is Krishna conscious principle. So devotee, knowing this, understands that these are the different resources given to me by Krishna. See, it is very important to understand this. We are thinking car given by the temple is a resource. I will use it properly. Correct. All these grossly, if we try to visualize, laptop given for my service, that is a resource. Mobile phone given for my service, another resource for Krishna. Correct? So we are thinking if resources are there, I should use them for Krishna. I should not misuse them. Correct? In our policies, we write that these are all given for Krishna's service. It must be utilized for service of Krishna, not for our personal benefit. Just like even when we are constructing the temple, we keep in the mind this gorgeous temple, if we are building, it is not for us to stay comfortably there. That is not the whole idea. We understand that actually it's a resource being utilized so that we can make people Krishna conscious. For ourselves, yatahara upayunjata, as much it is required, we utilize. But for Krishna's sake, we don't hesitate to use anything. So two very important understanding. When it comes to my personal use, it should be as much it is required, because I am in that bodily concept of life. And that is why when a devotee is not very mature, the lesser the resources are provided to him, the better are the chance he will be engaged properly, because he does not know how to use them. You give a knife, very sharp knife, to an immature person, what will he do? He does not know how to utilize it. He can cause havoc. Similarly, these resources, material resources, until and unless they are utilized properly under the guidance of the spiritual master, can actually become a source of entanglement. Certain things we have given up and come to Krishna consciousness, and again if we become attached to the different resources, then it is an obstacle in service of Krishna. Prabhupada lamented what happened in Gaudiya Math. Lot of resources were built up, gorgeous temple, nice facilities, rooms, everything. Unfortunately, immature disciples, then they started fighting for, this room is mine, this is mine. You see, material possessions. So, these are the things we have to understand. As a devotee in Krishna consciousness, we can understand, we can think about what are the resources provided. Okay, auto is given and money is given for expenses, laptop is given, mobile is given. We should also think this body is also given. Krishna has given this body. This is also a resource. Isn't it? Sometimes we think, my children, my wife, I will use as I like. Isn't it? I am the proprietor, I am the master. We forget, no. They're all given to us to safeguard for some time, to utilize them properly. It is just like Brahma is given the task, some kind of responsibility. Indra is given the task, he is given the responsibility. And when he is mismanaging, then Krishna also punishes them. And the greater the responsibility you have, the greater will be the punishment. That also we should understand. Prabhupada says that when Yamraj committed a mistake, he had to become a Shudra. Greater responsibility. And if you commit a mistake at greater responsibility, then bigger punishment. So, in that sense, devotee understands this, that what is required is very simple. If this formula we can adopt, mind absorbed in Krishna, activity for the satisfaction of Krishna, and all resources are utilized for it. These three things. Mind, any activity you are doing, it should be absorbed in Krishna. Then, understanding that everything should be done for his satisfaction. Whatever activity I am doing, is it satisfying the Supreme Lord? Is it satisfying the spiritual master? Sense gratification will not satisfy. I have promised to the spiritual master that 4 things I will not do. If I indulge in that, then actually I am not satisfying the spiritual master. I am misusing this problem, misusing this resource. So, everything is meant for his enjoyment. So, when activity is done for his enjoyment and certain activity displeases him, the moment we engage in sense enjoyment, it displeases Krishna. So why we should be engaged in some activity like that? It will displease my spiritual master. That should be the concern. Not that it is my body, so what is there if I have utilized it for some sense enjoyment? That means we have not understood Krishna conscious principle, no? This body is also Krishna's. Mind is also Krishna's. Intelligence is also Krishna's. So utilize that, and that is how Prabhupada wanted. So some devotee had certain kind of talent, Prabhupada engaged him in that kind of service. So that all his intelligence, whatever Krishna has given him, it can be utilized for satisfaction of Krishna. Somebody was a good painter, Prabhupada engaged them. You can see so many beautiful windows to the spiritual world. Isn't it? So, these three things if we can do, mind always engaged in Krishna, all resources engaged for Krishna, and work done for satisfaction of Krishna and for nothing else, then we are liberated. That is what Lord Kapila is saying. He will be called as Atmaram. And Prabhupada is giving the example, very wonderful example, very beautiful example. Devotee may also be collecting wood, stone, iron, steel, cement, and materialist person is also working, and he is also working with enthusiasm. You can see when somebody is constructing a huge house for himself or a skyscraper building, huge building, some apartment somebody is making, how much enthusiasm he has got. He is making his big company. He is getting so much satisfaction. Daily he will be visiting his site, how much work progressed. Isn't it? So devotees also working with enthusiasm. Devotees also using cement, steel. He is also thinking about all those material elements. But lot of difference. What is the difference? He is thinking of Krishna, and it is for satisfaction of Krishna. While doing the activity also is thinking of Krishna, and that activity itself, the result of that activity is meant for satisfaction of Krishna. This huge temple we are building, it is for satisfaction of the Lord. It will be a place where the Supreme Lord will be glorified. It is for His satisfaction. It is a place where His mission will be carried out. That is what one should understand. So, lot of difference. So, this principle is very important. One can be doing material activity, so-called material activity, but if the mind is absorbed in Krishna, even while doing so-called material activity, one can be still Atmaram. I'll just read this very nicely. Prabhupada is explaining what is the difference between temple construction and construction of a skyscraper building. An example may be cited in this connection. Just as a materialist engages in constructing a big skyscraper, devotee engages in constructing a big temple for Vishnu. Superficially, skyscraper constructor and temple constructor are on the same level, for both are collecting wood, stone, iron and other building materials. But the person who constructs a skyscraper is materialist. Person who constructs a temple of the Lord is Atmaram. See how much difference. Because devotee knows Vidita Tattva. He knows Krishna is the enjoyer. All material should be utilized for his enjoyment. One who knows that, he is Atmaram. If it is meant for his enjoyment, what are we doing? We are engaging everything in his service only. The cement, the wood, bricks, everything is being utilized for his satisfaction, for his enjoyment. So devotee is Atmaram even though he is still dealing in all these things. Materialist tries to satisfy himself in relation to his body by constructing a skyscraper, but the devotee tries to satisfy the super self, the supreme personality of Godhead, by constructing the temple. Although both are engaged in the association of material activity, devotee is liberated, materialist is conditioned. This is because devotee who is constructing the temple has fixed his mind upon the supreme personality of Godhead. This is very important. Any activity we do, mind should be fixed on the Lord. Activity should be for His satisfaction, and all resources, including my mind, my body, everything, we should not spare anything. Whatever is in our possession should be utilized for His service. Then we also become Atmara. But the non-devotee who is constructing the skyscraper has his mind fixed on sense gratification. And this is very important, what Prabhupada is saying. If while performing any activity, even in material existence, one's mind is fixed upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, one will not be entangled or conditioned. This is the principle. If our mind is absorbed in Krishna, then we should not worry about that I have been asked to do some kind of material activity, isn't it? It may look like, because for us we are thinking spiritual activity generally means Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, right? So we think where is the place of constructing or thinking about wood, metal, all these things, cement, isn't it? In that. So the whole idea is that actually that is also material, mind is also material. Now when it is given in our possession, if we just utilize everything for Krishna, it is spiritualized. It may be matter. It is matter for us. The moment we reutilize it in the service of the Lord, it spiritualizes. Then it is no more material. So the same cement, the same wood, it will not bind us. That is transcendental. That place becomes transcendental. So that is how we have to understand. So we'll stop with this. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.